I just want to say what an honor and pleasure it's been to serve as the chairman of the Fort Worth Chamber for this past year. I can't believe the year has already gone by this fast. I'm humbled to be one of the 57 prior leaders of over this past century who've had the opportunity to be, of service to all of you in this room and the whole Fort Worth business community. I want to thank everybody at Jackson Walker for their support this past year and for their willingness to allow me to be a little flexible with my time. I also want to thank Bill and the chamber staff for providing me with all of the information and the tools necessary to actually fulfill this position. And of course, I want to thank my family, my husband, Gordy Halsey, for his support and for being patient with me when I was needed to be elsewhere. He's here today with my father, Paul Anderson, and with my aunt, Barbara Pace, and I want to thank you guys for coming today, especially. Now, if you will indulge me in a little short illustration of kind of how the chamber works to fulfill its mission of promoting the interests of all of our members. If you've ever been to the Redwood National Park, anybody ever been? You know that those 300-foot tall trees don't have tap roots. They instead have shallow roots that intertwine with each other in a grove, or in that network of roots share moisture, they protect against fire, and they keep those trees upright for a millennium. Well, like those majestic skyscrapers, the Fort Worth Chamber has cultivated a strong root system for 132 years. We facilitate businesses, nonprofit and public sectors, and strengthen our economic system through solid partnerships. That's how we can weather the challenges that come our way and tower over our competition. The Chamber helps leverage, develop, and preserve resources, whether that's a natural resource like water, information resources we compile and share, or human resources such as our students and young professionals. For all these things, the Chamber has been, and still is, the go-to resource. Indeed, we're Fort Worth's natural resource for business. In your folders, you'll notice that we've provided an annual report with that theme and plenty of infographics to highlight some of last fiscal year's accomplishments. And you're going to find all the numbers there, so I just want to briefly hit the highlights. In my first interview as chairman, I told you in the chamber letter that my top priority would be education. Several weeks after that, I had the opportunity to act on that priority when a Fort Worth ISD bond proposal was put forth. The chamber set up an SPAC and raised more than $100,000 for a 10-week campaign called Smart Choices for Smarter Schools. And as you know, the voters overwhelmingly passed all three bond propositions by an average of 72%, the highest margin of any bond election in Texas. The Chamber has partnered with the Fort Worth ISD since we were both established in 1882. We're grateful for all that Superintendent Walter Dansby brought to the district for the last 40 years. Thank you, Walter. And we stand ready to support the ISD's Board of Trustees in its search for a new superintendent to fill the mission of preparing our students to contribute and compete in a global economy. Also on the ballot last fall were several state initiatives the Chamber supported. At our state capitol, we advocated for Education Bill HB 5 to allow greater flexibility for students to become college and career ready. And with help from partners like the Tarrant Regional Water District, we advocated for Proposition 6, which allowed the state water plan to obtain $2 billion from the Rainy Day Fund to sustain water needs for our fast-growing population. Last spring, the Chamber wrote letters of support for the American Airlines US Airways merger to the ranking members of the U.S. Subcommittee on Antitrust. Following that, CEOs Bill Thornton and Jim Oberwetter from the Dallas Regional Chamber met privately with Attorney General Greg Abbott to gain his support of the merger. And I wish I'd been able to be a fly on the wall in that meeting. Fortunately, American Airlines is now on a path to profitability again as we celebrate their 35th anniversary of them moving their headquarters back here to Fort Worth, and their commitment to stay and expand as they will break ground soon on their Integrated Operations Control Center. Also marking a big anniversary this year is DFW International Airport. It's 40 years for that airport. If not for this inland port that drives our economy, North Texas would not be the international hub it has become, with new air routes to China, South America, and Australia. Another notable anniversary this year includes the 25th anniversary of the economic engine that is Alliance, Texas. Over the lifespan of this project, its $50 billion economic impact has been a real game changer for Fort Worth. Now, last year, the Chamber's partnership with the airport took us on joint trade missions to those countries as we explored opportunities to expand our international economic development. And meanwhile, thanks to your investment in the Chamber's $1.5 million 5-year economic development campaign, which we called Forward Fort Worth, we participated in 14 relocation and expansion projects last fiscal year. They totaled $517 million in capital investment and nearly 5 million square feet of space. And this level of success did not go unnoticed. The Fort Worth Chamber has always been in the top 20 economic development organizations, and I'm using Texas exaggeration when I say that because there's really 7 out of the last 9 years, but you know, we love them. We actually were catapulted this year into the top 10 in the US as ranked by Site Selection magazine. I think we need to give the Chamber staff a big round of applause for that one. Okay, 2 more Chamber initiatives that you'll see in the annual report focus on jobs, especially for veterans and young professionals. The Chamber's workforce development staff is partnering with a number of veterans organizations to identify and share information for businesses and workforce entities so that our returning veterans can successfully transition from military to civilian life. Our Vision Fort Worth program for young professionals launched FWHAT, F-W-H-A-T, a microsite that puts emphasis on the FW part of DFW. And this site features 12 categories of information, such as jobs, neighborhoods, recreation, those things that outline life here in Fort Worth and tell us why it's a great place for young professionals to live. One designation that will help Fort Worth attract and retain the best and the brightest talent is being named a Blue Zone. Blue Zones are places in the world where people live longer, happier lives with lower rates of chronic diseases and a higher quality of life. After an assessment last fall and seeing that our mayor not only walks the talk, but cycles it too, Fort Worth has been chosen as the largest city in the world to participate in the Blue Zones Project initiative. That's just awesome. Through outreach and education, the goal is to transform our community into one of the healthiest in the world through voluntary commitments from businesses, schools, faith communities, and others. Recently, that commitment received a shot in the arm from one of today's platinum sponsors, Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Texas. Last month, they announced a very generous $5 million charter sponsorship for the Blue Zones Project in Fort Worth. Thank you, Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Of that, $2.5 million is in the form of a community catalyst grant that will match donations dollar for dollar. So I'm so thankful to them for doing that. Finally, one of the biggest highlights last year was the Chamber's commemoration of the 50th anniversary of JFK's last day, which began with a Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce breakfast in what was then the Texas Hotel Texas. was. And that was, of course, on November 22nd of 1963. Our keynote speaker was author and former Secret Service agent Clint Hill, who was assigned to Jackie Kennedy. He returned to Fort Worth, to what is now the Hilton Ballroom, to speak to us about that fateful and final morning that he accompanied the Kennedys. Also there that morning was former Speaker of the House Jim Wright, whom we honored with the Chamber's High Impact Legacy Award. It was really a stirring event for everyone who attended. For those of you who were there, it was really memorable, and it was a great way for our community to mark a really significant historic milestone. Then as now, the Chamber is all about the company you keep. You're known by it, influenced by it, and supported by it. And I'm continually inspired by it. I'm inspired by business leaders, owners, employees, residents, visitors who truly love Fort Worth. One of the most inspiring things that anyone has ever said to me that really influenced my career and my community involvement is that one of my partners at the firm said to me, "Susan, you're like Cinderella. You're standing in front, you've worked really hard, you're standing right in front of the glass slipper and you're afraid to try it on. Know that you've earned it and go for it. I mean, it just might fit." Well, as the second female chairman in the history of the Fort Worth Chamber, I'm glad I tried it on. That story may not mean a lot to you men in the audience. Women, shoes communicate. Since that advice rang true for me, I want to leave it with you. Be willing to go ahead and put on that glass slipper or try to fill those rather big shoes of somebody who's gone before you, because it just might be a fit for you too. And before I leave here, I want to make a presentation to Bill. You can keep your seat, Bill, but I just wanted to say that every time I've been at this podium where I've been allowed to have a gavel, which was not today for some reason, but usually when calling a meeting to order, there's a gavel and a block. It's always the gavel that belongs to the Honorable Mike Moncrief from the time when he was at the Texas House of Representatives, Texas Legislature. But I thought after 132 years that possibly it was time for the Chamber to own its own gavel. So this is my gift to you, and I'll bring it to you later.